It happened in Jacksboro, boys.
What do you think draws Lomaxes to this type of work?
I don't know what it is. This 4 in a row of us that have been drawn to music, finding and presenting and preserving and promoting music that we think other people ought to hear. And for whatever reason, this is something that we feel that we should do. And so we do.
This going out on the Buffalo Range depends upon the pay.
Since 1880, the Lomax family has been saving, funding, and fighting to keep old classic American songs alive. These days, it's Nashville's John Lomax III keeping up the family tradition.
Polka-dotted across Britain were these groups of young men who all at the same time seemed to discover the American blues.
There was a lot of visiting blues artists. So you saw like the film clips of old blues artists like Leadbelly, visitors that came repeatedly like Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee.
If America's given anything to this world, it's been music.
Hey folks, Anthony here, director of Gems on VHS. You know, popular music, at least as we know it today, wouldn't be the same without the Lomax family. Artists like the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and so many more were influenced by and even took songs directly from the American blues artists that the Lomax family recorded back in the day. Today, artists as diverse as Moby, the Black Keys, Beyonce, Jay-Z, Kanye West, hell, even Nicki Minaj, have used samples of the Lomax recordings. The field recordings that the Lomaxes produced in their time had a massive impact on so many musicians, so many lives. Even songs that we learn today in school, like Home on the Range. I remember for me personally, Where Did You Sleep Last Night, an old Leadbelly song. Kurt Cobain just had this guttural, visceral folk performance of that acoustic. And that led me down this huge rabbit hole of folk music. Over the last century, the Lomaxes contributed tens of thousands of photos, film, sheet music, manuscripts, audio recordings, and more to the American Library of Congress, to the world, hell, even to the solar system. After all, it was Alan Lomax who gave a mixtape of songs to Carl Sagan, the famous scientist, for the Voyager spacecraft mission. So hell, maybe aliens are listening to the Lomax recordings right now. They introduced us to Woody Guthrie, Muddy Waters, Leadbelly, Vera Hall, I mean, just to name a few. They recorded cowboy songs, worker songs, prison songs, spirituals, nursery rhymes, many pieces of, historical culture that might not have been ever found otherwise, lost to the passage of time without their efforts. These weren't mainstream things they were recording. These were things that people didn't care about. The Lomaxes were relentless song hunters and personal heroes of mine. So a couple years ago, after a certain Rolling Stone article came out about this YouTube channel, they very generously compared what we do to Lomax's work, and I got a random email. The subject of the email simply said, "Lomax here." Yeah, my jaw dropped, but it turned out to be John Lomax III. Someone had showed him the article, and he just reached out. He lives in Nashville, and he had spent a lifetime continuing the family legacy. He was kind enough to invite me into his home and let me ask him all sorts of questions about the Lomax family history and his time managing the career of Townes Van Zandt.
The whole Lomax music chapter began in 1869. The Lomaxes had moved from north central Mississippi over to central Texas to a place called Meridian. My grandfather was 2 years old. They did it in a wagon train. It took about 2 months for some trip now that you could do in a day. And it just happened. Their farm was smack in the middle of one of the trails that became the Chisholm Trail. So my granddad started hearing cowboys singing to the cattle at night.
Talk about your farms and your Chinaman charms. You talk about your silver and your gold, but the cowboy's life is a very dear life. It's a riding through the heat and the cold.
He got interested in that, and he started sneaking out of the house, hanging out with the cowboys. And after a while, he started writing the words down to the songs that they were singing. He kept collecting. He would go around recording cowboys, and he would do this on horseback with this giant recording machine, half strapped to the back of the saddle and half hanging onto the pump.
What did it record to?
It recorded smack onto wax cylinders, and he had one of those recording machines with the giant horn, and the cowboys would sing into the horn. Some of them wouldn't do it. They thought it was the devil's machine and all this. He would record these songs that he wanted to preserve. So Grandfather went all over the country writing these people and tracking down songs, of which the first book came in 1910. That was Cowboy Songs. So that would have been the first place Home on the Range, for instance, was ever published.
Now it's like a song that you would hear any elementary school kid is going to learn.
Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play.
Cowboy Songs and Frontier Ballads by John A. Lomax Sr. was a huge success, and it transformed him into a nationally known figure in the recording industry. Encouraged by his wife Bess, he toured the country, giving lectures on cowboy songs and American folklore. In 1917, though, he was ousted from his professorship at Texas A&M and took up a new job as a banker, turned a new leaf. The stock market crash in 1929, though, led to the Great Depression. You might have heard about it. The bank he worked for failed. So in 1931, his wife Bess died, and he was left in debt, unemployed, with 4 children to support.
The big collecting trip that everyone would remember happened in the Depression, 1933. At this point, his wife had died. He'd lost all his money. He had sold people bonds that were now worthless. He couldn't go back to the university. So my father talked him into doing another folk collecting trip. We're talking in the 30s. No interstates, no divided highways. In fact, very little concrete at all. The asphalt would be the top of the line, and the machine weighed almost 400 pounds. Because the machine was built into the back of a Model A Ford. If it rained a lot, most of the roads were dirt, and you were just stuck. He went on that trip, and he took my uncle along, Alan, who at the time was 18. On that trip, that was where Alan and my grandfather found Leadbelly in prison and recorded him.
Now, the story goes as well that they got Leadbelly out of prison. How true is this story?
I'm not sure how true it is. He actually got out of prison because his time was up. But Grandfather did write letters to the warden and the governor. It couldn't have hurt Leadbelly's chances of getting out of prison, but...
What did it bring me to silver? What did it bring me to gold? What did it bring me to your mother? Give me something to get us for, yeah.
That's fine, Leadbelly. You're a fine songster. Thank you, sir, boss. I sure hope you send Governor O'Callaghan a record of that song I made up about him, because I believe he's telling me to lose. Leadbelly, I don't know this governor. I'll try it. Boss, here I is. Leadbelly, what are you doing here? You got me out of that Louisiana pen.
Now, Leadbelly might have been one of the most important figures that the Lomaxes helped to raise into prominence. The songs he wrote and the folk songs he recorded have gone on to be covered by so many artists. I mean, Led Zeppelin, Nirvana, CCR, Eric Clapton, Willie Watson, Janis Joplin cited him as an early influence. George Harrison of the Beatles once said, "If there was no Leadbelly, there'd be no Lonnie Donegan, and if there was no Lonnie Donegan, there would be no Beatles." His direct and indirect influence on music is immense. Seriously, Leadbelly is one of those mythical American figures who had a global impact through his music.
Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene, good night.
He was what you'd call a songster, which means that he would sing all manner of songs, not necessarily folk or cowboy or anything. He would hear popular songs and he'd learn them. And so Leadbelly, for a while there, everything was fine. Grandfather helped get his career going. He put him on the radio and did a lot of things for him, but they had a falling out. And Leadbelly and he never really got along after that, although Uncle Alan did stay friends with Leadbelly.
Alan Lomax moved to England in the 1950s. He was fleeing FBI persecution in the famous Red Scare period. He brought the American blues with him.
He worked for the BBC, he had radio shows, he performed, he booked people, he brought Muddy Waters to England, he brought Howlin' Wolf to England, and in my opinion, made the entire English rock scene happen in the United States because he seeded England with all these people. Now those English rockers are all influenced by American music.
Skiffle music and everything.
Skiffle came along, and Lonnie Donegan tried to steal all Leadbelly's songs and claim he'd written them. And
no way.
Yeah, oh he did.
Yeah.
He put his name on them.
Going down the Rock Island Line, the mighty good road, yes indeed. Well, the Rock Island Line, they say the mighty good road. Well, the Rock Island Line is the road to ride. Yeah, the Rock Island Line is the mighty good road. And if you want to ride it, gotta ride it like to find it. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island Line.
Yeah, he was the first one that kind of became a mega hit out there, taking all their songs from America that nobody out here was really listening to back then.
No.
It wasn't yet a big thing.
The way I like to put it is that they took American folk, blues, and country music, jazzed it up, put hair on it, and sent it back here as the next new thing, the English invasion. Well, it was just American music that had gone to England and gotten in the hands of some other people with long hair and sent back here.
So tell me a little bit about Alan. What was he like as a person?
Ebullient and just full of energy. He was just a larger-than-life kind of person. I mean, if you look at his achievements, when he was 22 years old, he went to Haiti and spent 2 years there recording all of the music of this entire island.
I found out that what I was really doing and my father was really doing was giving an avenue for those people to express themselves and tell their side of the story.
And when you hear tapes of him recording people, what jumps out to you is the degree of enthusiasm he is presenting to this person that he's recording. When you hear Alan talking to them about, tell us about when you were, it's just this obvious, you can't fake real enthusiasm. Certainly not to these people, that Jelly Roll Morton and Leadbelly and these Muddy Waters and these other people. They realized right away, this guy really wants to hear me. This guy really, really seriously wants to hear me. And they were not used to that.
Yeah. He kind of changed the landscape of American culture, kind of an unknowingly though, an unknown.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, where would we be without all this saved? And, the family had realized early on this was important and culturally, and they saved it even though no one else thought it was important.
Song is a survival technique. Art is the absolute center of human progress. It's the thing that keeps the culture together and gives it its unity, makes it possible for it to continue to move. And we've devoted our caring very narrowly. And when we learn to stop being so middle-class snooty and to be interested in the whole range of human beings, as I think we will, I think that's the next step for the human race.
Alan and John Lomax Sr. not only recorded some of the most influential artists of the 20th century, but they sparked an entire movement. Alan's brother, John Lomax III's dad, John Lomax Jr., hard to follow, I know, added his own energy to the ongoing folk revival.
So in 1951, he started with some other fellows, the Houston Folklore Society. Meetings originally were held in the house, in our house.
You remember these growing up?
Vaguely, yeah. I remember my mother getting furious one day because she had gone out to get the morning paper and found one of the Folk Society members sleeping in the flower bed who had been unable to get to his car.
So they had a good time, huh?
Had too much beer. There was a little beer and other things passed around to keep the throats supple. It grew first from the house to city parks, and then they outgrew that and eventually got to the point where they were putting on shows at the University of Houston in a 2,000-seat auditorium. And they would bring in Pete Seeger or Gary Davis, Reverend Gary Davis, and Lightnin did a lot of Houston Folklore Society shows.
Whoa, the good Lord will be good to me. Just let me see my little Marge's face again.
Do you remember him when you were growing up?
A little bit, yeah. He would be coming around the house. He had liked to have, he had gold teeth and show off, and he'd drink a lot and carry on and make up songs on the spot. He could just sit down and you'd say, "Hey, Lightnin, what about that Sputnik thing?" And he'd bang, there'd be a song, just like that. I mean, he could go into a studio without a single thing and come out 3 hours later with an album. But through the doors, so to speak, of the Folklore Society, Guy Clark came through, Townes Van Zandt came through, Steve Earle, Lucinda Williams, K.T. Oslin, and you can just keep going and going. So it was sort of the Houston launching pad for a whole lot of people who went on to have national and international careers. In '73, I came here because I wanted to be in the music business. I came up to Nashville and it was like, God, this is pretty cool. And I knew Guy Clark, and Guy was in touch with Townes, so we had the sort of a jungle grapevine thing. And in '76, Townes, let's see, his record company had gone under. He didn't have a booking agent. He'd fallen off his horse, broken his arm. He'd gotten drunk, somebody stole his guitar. And so I said, you know, man, why don't you move here and we'll try to see if we can't get somebody to cut a song or something. So he said, okay, and I said, well, I'll manage you. And of course I had no idea what I was doing, but.
And he just said okay like that? It was that easy?
Yeah, we shook hands. Official handshake, that's that.
Excuse me, I'm Townes Van Zandt, and this is my dog Geraldine here. Geraldine, come here. Geraldine.
Then the movie people came along, the Heartworn Highways people, and Guy Clark turned me on to them and just said, they want this and that and the other, and I don't want to fool with it, I just want to do my thing, and they want to find people. So I got them Charlie Daniels and David Allen Coe and Steve Young.
And you got them Townes too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Townes' part was filmed in Austin, in an area called Clarksville, where he was living.
Yeah, and at the time, the big stars were Guy and like Charlie Daniels and all that. And then I heard it said that when they sent him down to Texas to go find Townes, they really didn't expect him to steal the show like he did.
I was there when they filmed Uncle Seymour, and I was there when they filmed the Rabbit Hole sequence, and so I was kind of watching over him a little bit. So his career started to move again, and Townes and I started a publishing company. The songs that were on Flying Shoes, he and I would get them in our publishing company. Well, instead, the guy who had Poppy Records and who had Tomato, Kevin Eggers, got Townes drunk and had him sign a new deal. And so the new deal was for Townes to give him some more records, and also I would be pushed out and a friend of Kevin's would become the manager.
That's all it took, huh?
That's what it took, and bam, I
you were
was
out
gone.
the door.
And so, because I had been asking questions like, Well, Kevin Townes has had 6 albums. Could we see some royalty statements, perhaps? Or what about the publishing? Could you have any song contracts? Do you have any BMI? Anything?
You're
I
digging
never
a little
got
too
it.
deep.
Instead, I got pushed out the door. Really didn't have much contact with him after that. I was so upset because I knew that this would mean they'd continually be cheated out of all his money, and that his career would never really get to where it should have gotten to with these people involved, because they only saw him as a meal ticket, not as somebody that they were wanting to build into a big star. And I thought he could be another Bob Dylan, another James Taylor.
Tell me about the last times you saw him.
One of the shows, it was kind of the raucous Townes is a little on the drunk side kind of show, and I wasn't really very impressed. But the Douglas Corner show he was on, and he kept himself together and just did one of those shows where 150 people, you don't hear a thing. You can almost hear them breathe. He was so good, and the songs were so good, and when he was on, he could just stop time.
He's kind of become a legend at this point.
Yeah.
Somebody who knew him, do you think the legend is warranted? I mean, what?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those songs.
What do you think it is about the songs that really gets people?
The wordplay is staggering. The poetry, the poetic element in there is just stunning. He wrote something like 95 songs, and most people know 6 or 7. But there's another 40 or 50 that will hold up with anyone's songs that are just staggeringly good. People called him the Rembrandt of songwriters, and for good reason.
Now, folks, it's easy to romanticize the past. We've left plenty of this story out. These are just a few highlights of a few significant members of a storied family. Like any family, yours included, I'm sure, the Lomaxes and the musicians they elevated had feuds, they had issues, blemishes, problems. Still, as I've gone deeper into the tale, I always find one resounding theme. They believe in the power of music to heal us, to bring us together, to bring our fractured tribes of humanity together by tapping into something deeper. A deeper part of the human soul that feels first and thinks and identifies second. Music tugs at something primal in us, something universal. That's why it's so much easier to tell a story through song than it is to try and convince somebody of your viewpoint through Twitter comments or through a YouTube comment feed, whatever. How would you define folk music?
For me, it's songs about people's lives, and whether you write them or learn them from somewhere else and adapt them, it's songs that are meant to be adapted and changed, and they're meant to be given to everyone.
One of Alan Lomax's last projects was one that he called the Global Jukebox. His daughter Anna is still working on it now. His intent was to create a massive educational database of music and dance styles to allow people everywhere to explore the links between the world's vast expanse of cultures. Almost something like Spotify would become 20 years later. Even in the early 90s, he saw the emerging technology and how it would change the very idea of culture. You know how it feels when you travel somewhere new and it looks exactly the same as another place hundreds of miles away? You're standing on a street corner and it's the same McDonald's, the same strip mall, the same monoculture. Maybe the same thing happens with music of a place. What is authentic in a world where we're all raised as much by a computer screen as anything else around us? Accents erode, corporations take over. As it becomes easier, faster, and cheaper to record and share music with almost anyone in the world, what do we have to lose in the process? Does it enrich everyone or risk watering everything down?
My view of it is that not very long ago there were hundreds of little separate communication worlds. I call them little bubbles of song and delight and ways of life and cookery and everything that existed everywhere. Literally hundreds of thousands of these little generators of the original. And suddenly all those delicate structures are being smashed and scattered and suppressed by an over-powerful, over-rich, over-reaching communication system. Cultural equity should join all the other important principles of human dignity, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom to work and live and enjoy yourself, and freedom for your culture to express itself. Because that's all we've got, you know. We're just culture.
If you made it this far, I just want to thank you for watching. This video took a lot of work. We want to acknowledge that we probably missed some folks in the credits because there's a lot of people who helped to make this possible, especially our Patreon supporters. Without y'all, I wouldn't be able to do this. You're the reason that we get to tell these stories. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Become a patron if you haven't. That would be awesome. We also have VHS tapes for sale and stuff like that if you're weird. So maybe you want a button. Go ahead and get one of those. Helps out the mission. Thanks to the subscribers. Become one if you haven't. Or don't. Up to you. We're writing about history, and we're writing history today, now. We've got hundreds of field recordings on the channel from the 21st century. So if you're into that kind of thing, you know, look it up. You might find some new musicians that write songs you like. Awesome. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Discord. All the links will be in the description. Did we miss any cool stories about Leadbelly or about Lomaxes that you think should be told? Leave it in the comments. We want to hear about it. Anything about Townes Van Zandt that you've always been impressed by, or questions you've always had. Maybe we'll reach back out to John and get him to answer some of those. Comment down below if you want to see us dive into more content like this. This is kind of new to us, but it's a fun way to tell new stories. So holler at me. Thanks, y'all. Happy song hunting. See you later.